A cold wind swept through the narrow alley. It carried dust, the smell of old wood, and the faint sound of distant footsteps. Raffi walked slowly, his bare feet pressed against the uneven ground. Small stones stung his soles with every step. He held a torn schoolbook close to his chest. Its pages fluttered like frightened birds in the breeze. The street was darker than usual that evening. Shadows clung to every corner. A single flickering bulb hung above the broken doorway of an abandoned shop. Its light trembled, as if unsure whether it wished to stay alive. Raffi paused beneath it. His heartbeat echoed louder than the sounds of the street. He was hungry. He was exhausted. Yet he walked on, because he had promised himself that he would never stop learning. He turned into a narrow passageway. The air felt colder here. Moisture dripped from cracked pipes overhead. Every sound seemed sharper. Then he heard it, a soft whisper, a whisper that did not belong to the wind. Raffi froze. The book nearly slipped from his hand. The whisper grew clearer, as if someone was calling his name. Calling it slowly, calling it gently, but with a strange weight that pressed against his chest. Raffi stepped forward. His eyes searched the darkness. A faint light appeared behind a pile of broken crates. It glowed softly, warmly, like a candle trying to breathe in a storm. Raffi moved toward it, one cautious step at a time. The light flickered again, and he felt a sudden rush of cold air around him. His skin tingled, his breath tightened. He reached out his hand. His fingers trembled. He pushed the crates aside, and what he saw made him gasp so sharply that the air burned in his throat. It was a lantern, but it was not an ordinary lantern. It hung in the air without any rope or hook. It floated, and beneath it sat a small figure, a figure no bigger than a child. But the face was hidden, covered by a deep shadow that moved even though the figure sat completely still. Raffi felt the world around him shrink. His knees weakened. His heartbeat thudded so loudly that it filled his ears. The floating lantern glowed brighter. Its light stretched toward him, reaching, inviting, pulling. Then the figure slowly raised its head, and the darkness around its face shifted as if something inside was trying to escape. Raffi stepped back. His heel struck a stone. He almost fell. The figure whispered again, this time clearly, this time directly into his ear, even though it sat several steps away. Raffi, I have been waiting for you. His breath stopped in his chest. The world around him felt heavier. The air felt too thick to swallow. He took one more step back. But the lantern floated closer. Its light grew stronger, brighter, hotter. Raffi shielded his eyes. The warmth from the light touched his skin. But the warmth did not feel comforting. It felt like a warning. He opened his mouth to speak, but his voice refused to leave his throat. The lantern stopped just inches from his face. Its glow pulsed like a living heartbeat, and the figure beneath it stood up with slow, trembling movements. The shadow covering its face thinned, and Raffi saw the outline of small eyes staring directly into his own. Eyes that should have been gentle, but were filled with something else. Something he could not name. Something that felt like it had followed him long before this night. The eyes that should have been gentle, but were filled with something else. Something he could not name. Something that felt like it had followed him long before this night. Raffi tried to step back again, but his feet refused to move. They felt rooted to the cold ground, as if the darkness beneath him had curled around his ankles. The lantern hovered beside his face. Its light dimmed for a moment, then flared again with a glow that felt alive. The figure approached him. Its movements were slow, measured, almost deliberate. Raffi felt the air shift with each step it took. The alley seemed to narrow around him, as if the very walls were leaning closer to listen. He forced himself to breathe, but each breath felt shallow, sharp, uneven. The figure stopped an arm's length away. The shadow around its face thinned just enough for Raffi to see the shape of a small mouth. A mouth that slowly formed a faint smile. A smile that did not reach the eyes. You hear the world, the figure whispered. Its voice slid through the air like a thin blade. Even when others do not. Raffi swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. He tried to speak, but only a faint breath escaped him. The lantern floated between them. Its light flickered, and the shadows on the walls moved as if they were alive. You listen to the hunger inside you, the figure continued. Not the hunger for food, but the hunger for something greater. Raffi felt a strange pressure in his chest, as if invisible fingers were pushing against his heart. He clutched his book tighter. The torn edges scratched his skin. "How do you know my name?" Raffi finally managed to whisper. The figure tilted its head. The motion was slow, unnatural. "I know the names of those who carry light within them," it said. "And I know the names of those who tried to hide it." Raffi shook his head. "I do not understand." The figure stepped closer. Raffi felt the warmth of the lantern brush against his cheek. His skin tingled, not painfully, but not comfortably either. "You see hope," the figure whispered. "Even in places where hope has turned to dust." Raffi blinked. He had never thought of himself that way. He had only wanted to learn, to study, to escape the heavy reality of poverty. The figure raised a small hand. It was thin, pale, almost fragile, but its presence made Raffi's breath catch. The hand pointed toward his torn book. "You believe that this will save you," it said. "But you do not know what waits ahead." Raffi backed away. His shoulder touched the wall. Its rough surface scraped his skin. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The figure took another step. The shadow on its face shifted again, and for the first time, Raffi saw a faint outline beneath the darkness. A cheekbone, a curve of an eyebrow, and eyes that glowed faintly with a strange light. "I want to show you," it said. "I want you to see what others cannot." Raffi felt his stomach twist. Fear crawled up his spine like cold water. But there was something else too. Something unfamiliar. Curiosity. The lantern pulsed again. A soft hum filled the alley. The kind of sound that felt like it was vibrating through his bones. Raffi looked at the lantern, and then at the figure. "What will I see?" The figure extended its hand toward him. Its fingers hovered inches from his own. "Truth," it whispered. "A truth that will hurt. A truth that will guide. A truth you cannot ignore." Raffi hesitated. His hand trembled. A drop of sweat slid down his temple. His breath felt uneven again. Every instinct in his body told him to run, to turn around and escape into the familiar darkness of the streets. But something deeper held him in place. An inner voice, a quiet voice, a voice that had always whispered to him when days were hard. A voice that told him to push forward, to survive, to dream. Slowly, Raffi lifted his hand. His fingertips brushed against the figure's cold skin. The moment their hands touched, the lantern erupted in a sudden flash of white light. Raffi gasped. The world around him spun. The ground beneath his feet seemed to vanish. His vision blurred. His ears rang with a deep, echoing tone. He felt weightless, as if he were drifting through air, as if gravity had forgotten him. The alley dissolved around him. The walls melted into shadows. The dripping pipes faded into silence. The darkness stretched across his vision, and a new light, soft and golden, began to form in front of him. Raffi reached out toward it. His hand passed through the warm glow, and suddenly he felt the ground beneath him again. He staggered forward. His knees trembled. The light grew brighter, stronger, clearer, and the darkness around it peeled away to reveal a vast landscape. A place he had never seen before. A field of broken houses, scattered belongings, torn cloth fluttering from cracked roofs. The sky above was gray, heavy, silent. Raffi felt a chill creep across his skin. His breath formed thin white clouds in the cold air. He took a step into the strange landscape, and the sound of distant crying reached him. Faint, haunting, human. Raffi turned his head toward it, and what he saw made his heart tighten in his chest. His fingers curled around the strap of his book. A group of children stood in the ruins, barefoot, thin, shivering. Their eyes were hollow. They stared at the ground. They stared at their empty hands. They stared at nothing. Raffi felt a painful jolt run through him. It felt familiar, too familiar, because he saw himself in their faces. He saw his hunger, his loneliness, his fears, and then he saw something else. Something that made his throat tighten. He saw a child who looked exactly like him. Same eyes, same hair, same thin arms, same torn shirt. The child lifted his head. Their eyes met, and Raffi felt the shock strike him like a cold wave. The other Raffi raised a hand. Slowly, weakly, as if asking for help, as if reaching across the space between despair and hope. And a single question formed in Rafi's mind, a question that made his stomach twist painfully. Was this his future, or was it something worse? Rafi stared at the other version of himself. The weak child, the hungry child, the child who looked like he had fought too long without winning anything at all. The child lowered his trembling hand, his eyes filled with a sadness that struck Rafi deeper than fear ever had. Rafi stepped forward, his legs shook, his breath felt uneven, but he walked, toward the ruins, toward the children, toward the version of himself that looked like he had already given up. The closer he came, the colder the air felt. The wind carried the sound of their shivering, their quiet sniffles, their fragile breaths. Rafi stopped in front of the child who mirrored him. They stood face to face. Same height, same scars, same eyes, but one carried hope, and the other carried the weight of a life that had crushed him. Rafi knelt. He placed his hand on the child's shoulder. The shoulder felt light, too light, as if the child had grown used to carrying nothing but hunger. You do not need to stay here, Rafi whispered. You are not alone. The other child lifted his gaze. A faint spark flickered in his eyes. Rafi opened his torn book. Its pages rustled in the wind. The ink was faded, the corners were bent, but the words still lived. He held the book out to the child. The child looked at it, hesitated, then slowly reached out and touched the page. The moment his fingers met the paper, the lantern's light returned. It grew behind Rafi like a rising sun. Warm, soft, alive. The ruins around them trembled. The gray sky brightened. The cold wind softened into a gentle breeze. The other children lifted their heads. Their eyes widened as the warmth touched them. Their shoulders loosened. Their faces eased, as if the heavy shadows that had clung to them were finally lifting away. The child who looked like Rafi held the book close. His eyes filled with a light that had not been there before. A light that felt familiar. A light Rafi recognized. Hope. The lantern floated above them. Its glow spread across the broken landscape. The ruins softened into outlines. The ground beneath Rafi's feet faded. The children slowly dissolved into golden light. And the Rafi that was not him gave one last, small nod. A nod of gratitude. A nod of understanding. The world flashed white. Rafi closed his eyes. He felt weightless again. Then his feet touched solid ground. He opened his eyes. He was back in the alley. The dripping pipes. The broken crates. The night breeze. But the lantern was gone. And so was the strange figure. Only the faint warmth of the light remained in the air. A warmth that settled over Rafi's heart. He looked at his book. Its torn pages seemed brighter, clearer, almost as if they carried the glow of the lantern within them. Rafi stood up straight. His fear had faded. His uncertainty had quieted. A calm determination filled him. He walked out of the alley. His steps were steady. His breath was strong. His heart carried a new truth. He now understood that his struggle was not only his own. There were others like him. Children who waited in the shadows. Children who needed a spark. A voice. A chance. And maybe, he could be the guiding light. Rafi looked at the sky. The stars shimmered quietly above him. He held his book close. Closer than before. He walked toward the path that led home. Not because he had escaped his hardships, but because he had found the strength to rise above them. He would study. He would grow. He would help others rise with him. The night around him felt warmer now, as if the lantern still followed him, not floating in the air, but glowing inside him, a guiding light, a gentle light, a light that would never fade. And Rafi walked forward, into a future he was no longer afraid to face.